Well, hello everyone out there to the Head Couch Analyst Show. I am your host Sanders, and as normal, I am joined by my host Pardue. We are coming at you with episode 1 of season 2. That's right, we're coming back. We got season 2 going. We're hoping to make it bigger and better than ever. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing pretty good. A lot has happened since the last time we recorded a podcast.
Yeah, so let's give a life update. What's going on with... I already know what's going on with you, but why don't you tell the rest of the audience?
Well, a lot of our listeners are people who follow me, so a lot of them probably know. But since our last episode, I've gotten married. Promotions at jobs. Making life plans now, move across the country here in the next few months potentially. But lots of stuff going on. We went through some hardships. We lost some family. We lost some pets recently. So it's been a pretty crazy last few months, but it's starting to get better, and we're making plans to move to the forever home, so that's pretty cool.
Hey man, I know what you mean about losses. I lost a family member over the summer that I didn't really tell literally anyone, only my family knows. I lost my job, so I got a new one. I'm now working in the same school district as my co-host over here, so that's pretty cool. Woohoo! So, readjusting to some things. One big life update that I do have is I got all my student debt paid off, so I'm no longer in debt to the man.
Dub.
Big dub, dude. You know how awesome it was to get my first paycheck today and was like, wow, this is all mine. I don't have to give it away.
Pretty sick.
It is pretty sick. It was such a cool feeling, dude. So, and I recently bought a not necessarily a ready to drive Ridgeline, but I bought a project Ridgeline that I've been working on for the last 3 months now. Got a new paint job on it. I put on new brakes. I'm going to be painting the chrome rims. I'm going to be painting them black, so it's going to be like an all black edition. Put some black sides on it, whatnot. So yeah, it's a work in progress. I'm almost done with it though. Got a new stereo and stuff like that. It's almost ready. I'm so happy to almost get that thing on the road.
Yeah, I'm still sitting in my 2007 Taurus, but just now crossed it just a couple days ago. 219,000 miles on it.
Hey man, and it's still going.
Still going. I'm probably towing it to Ohio, so. Well, it still runs. I'll just run it into the fucking ground. Not having that payment's pretty nice.
Yeah, not having a car payment is 100% nice, which is why I didn't buy mine new. I bought a project instead, which I'm okay with, because I know once I finish the project, it's customized the way I want it, and no car payment. So, you guys didn't come here to listen to us talk about our lives, though. You guys came here to listen to some NFL 2021 football season. I guess not necessarily takeaways, but we got some predictions coming for you. We got a couple hot takes coming for you, and we're going to discuss how we feel about the overall season coming in. I would like to let some listeners know we are not hitting every single team today. Just like most shows and most rating shows, you hit the top teams and that's who you talk about, right? So our topic for today is going to be who we think the divisional winners are going to be and who we think their wild cards are going to be. So obviously we're going to be excluding teams like the Jaguars, the Bengals, probably the Jets on here, teams that are going to be taking a couple years to get there. We will, of course, talk about those teams in the future because those teams have people like Joe Burrow, who Andrew and I both love over here, rookie Zach Wilson, rookie Trevor Lawrence. There's a lot to talk about with those teams, right? We're just not going to get to them today. So I think we want to talk about the division winners before the wild cards, right? You think so? I think so too. All right, so let's go to the NFC first, and let's start with the NFC West. I'm going to take the NFC West first. And how we're going to do this is we're just going to be saying our divisional winners. We're not really going to debate it. He and I will be debating a lot over the season, just like we did last year. So we're going to keep this one cool, calm, and collected for the first episode of Season 2. So for the NFC West, I've got the Rams winning this division. I think most people do. And it's between a loaded roster, a quarterback who can finally unleash Sean McVay's, playbook to its ceiling, a core set of gadget players that work really well within the scheme, an offensive line that's pretty decent to protect Matt Stafford, and a defensive line that's going to wreck almost everyone they cross paths with. And they also, as much as I hate to admit it, for those who listen to the show, they know I'm not a big fan of Jalen Ramsey. But as a player, I can't deny he's top 2 corner, probably number 1, but I'll just say top 2 to not make anyone mad for whoever their number 1 is. I don't know. I mean, I guess Ravens fans would argue Humphrey, Dolphins fans would argue Howard, Patriots fans would argue Gilmore, so, whatever. But Jalen Ramsey is certainly right up there, and I don't really see how, at least on paper, the Rams are going to falter. Like, I tried looking for, where could they falter? I saw the running game, but I'm like, they have Matt Stafford, so who cares? I mean, that's my takeaway for the Rams. That's why I picked them. Who you got for the NFC West?
So, no matter how much I want to say the Cardinals, it's really hard to pick against Sean McVay and Matt Stafford together with the weapons they have on offense. Now, one thing that concerns me with the Rams is their running game, because it's something that they struggled with last year because they never really truly had a lead horse. So they never really had a consistent run game, and I think that's what really held them back. They miss having a guy like Todd Gurley. This offense misses it. Jared Goff really missed it, especially down the stretch last year. That'll be less of a problem with Matt Stafford, but you still need to support him with a solid run game. And with Cam Akers going down, he was supposed to be their number 1 guy, and he's done for the year. And yeah, you bring in Sony Michel, but Sony Michel was only really good for a period of time in one season and for a playoff run, and that was about it. He's not going to come in there and be the number 1 back. And now Darrell Henderson has shown flashes, but we'll see if he can come in with the consistency. I would like to see that offense, because I don't want to see that offense do good, but I mean, Sean McVay is a great coach, and that's who I want Cliff Kingsbury to be, honestly. So to see him actually unleash his offense with a true, I believe, top 10, potentially, his ceilings in the elite category of the league, it's hard to pick against the Rams with that defense and Matt Stafford and Sean McVay. Cardinals could shock people. Who knows? But we also haven't beaten that team in, I think, 4 or 5 years now. Something like that. I've lost count. So, yeah, got to give it to the Rams.
I think the weird part about the NFC West is, and this is coming from me, I mean, part of me, I think, sides with the Cardinals just because I live in Arizona and I have a lot of Arizona Cardinals friends, so I see more of the Cardinals side of things. But I'm not I'm not sitting out here wearing their jerseys or cheering for them to win every Sunday, right? But I enjoy seeing a city, embrace a team. It was wonderful watching the entirety of Arizona embrace the Phoenix Suns, right? And I think that would be awesome to see here in Arizona. Regardless, it's funny how with the NFC West, I'm like, yeah, Rams, gotcha. But then when I look at 2, 3, 4, I'm like, I don't know who to put at 2, 3, 4. I usually have an image in my head of I think it's Cardinals 2, 49ers 3, Seahawks 4. But then other times I'm like, no. They got Russell Wilson. There's no way that happens. Okay, so maybe it's Seahawks 2, Cardinals 3, 49ers 4. But then I'm like, no. The 49ers roster is so loaded, right? So it's got to be 49ers 2, Seahawks 3, Cardinals 4. I'm like, no. They got all the Cardinals just got all this talent, so they can't be 4. And I just sit there and I'm like, oh, someone's got to be 4. I couldn't tell you who. The NFC West just confuses me on how I view the division, right? There's so much potential with all 4 teams, but at the end of the day, someone's got to not meet their potential. and someone's got to not meet expectation. And unfortunately, when I look at the Cardinals, I always see potential, but the one thing that holds me back is Cliff Kingsbury's the only head coach in there who's not really all that proven yet. And this is coming from me, a guy who defends Cliff a lot on Arizona Twitter. I hate seeing Cliff hate. I think it's dumb. I think disliking a coach that has improved a team every year he's been there is stupid. I don't see why you would dislike that coach. I understand the play calling aspect. I watched the games last year. I got frustrated watching the play calling. But overall, a coach is more than play calling, right? There's the aspect of team culture. There's the aspect of players liking a coach. There's the aspect of players trusting a coach, right? And that's something you don't get to see. I don't understand Cliff hate, and yet there's a piece of me that's I want to buy into the Cardinals so hard. There's so much I love about them, but my one question mark is, does the head coach take it where he needs to go, right? So that's usually how I look at the NFC West, because Kyle Shanahan, I mostly trust. Pete Carroll, I'm probably always going to trust. That man has taken rosters that I thought would go 7-9 to 10, 11 win seasons. Part
You're
of that.
Going to trust the man who didn't run the football on the 1 yard line in the Super Bowl?
Okay, come on, man.
I mean, you say so.
Come on, man. Hey, you know what? At least he's gotten to the Super Bowl in the last decade. At least, you know what? At least every team in the NFC West has gotten to the Super Bowl in the last decade, except for one because they couldn't do it in 2015. Nada? Nothing? That's what I thought.
Still.
Alrighty. So are we good on the NFC West for now? We both are picking the Rams, I assume.
Yes. Did you hear me?
No, I did not hear you. I assume that we are. Yeah. Well, he said yes earlier, so I assume we're both still picking the Rams. All right. Moving on to the NFC North. Pardue, would you like to take the NFC North away?
What do you mean? Oh, yes. Obviously, I mean, when you really look at this division, I'm not big on the Vikings at all. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. They got some great receivers. They have some pieces on defense, but I don't know. Nothing about that team, it's been together for a couple years now, has really jumped out as being something special. It's not something that I think can compete with the other elite teams in the NFC, because the NFC it's just a powerhouse. The NFC is insane with the teams that are in here. It's why I'm not saying I'm not sure the Cardinals can't make the playoffs, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. The NFC is just stacked. I don't see the Vikings doing a whole lot. The Lions are probably going to be really, really bad this year. Jared Goff is going to a defensive-minded head coach, and I think the only reason Jared Goff really looked any good was because of Sean McVay. So I think we might be seeing some of, maybe not quite as drastic, but what we saw out of him the first couple years of his career. We'll see what Jamal Williams can do with the running game, being a lead horse. I like the fit. His name is slipping my mind. I know I believe he was the defensive coordinator for the Saints. What's the name of the Lions head coach now?
Wait, the Lions head coach is Dan Campbell.
Dan Campbell, yes. So, I do like Dan Campbell. I just don't think the Lions are going to be competitive anytime soon. That leaves the Bears and the Packers, and honestly, I hate watching the Bears. I hate their brand of football, but they win. They make the playoffs. They don't do good in them, but they make it, and they're doing something right. If that's the case, I think the quarterback needed to change, and now they're rolling out Andy Dalton, which I could get into and melt down about that because I just don't understand it. But Justin Fields' time is coming, and I believe that is a quarterback that can make the Bears, with that defense, with the weapons they already currently have, a pretty good team. Now, Matt Nagy, I think he has some pretty questionable play calling. I don't he's not a top tier NFL coach by any means. I'm not a big fan of Matt Nagy, so we'll see how far he can really take the team. But I mean, again, he's taken them to the playoffs, so he's doing more than some other coaches. But I'm not putting anything past Aaron Rodgers and what the Packers have. So we'll just leave that at that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about like the NFC North, and this has remained true for as long as both Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers have been quarterback of Green Bay, is it's impossible to not pick Green Bay because of their quarterback. Regardless of what you want to say about whatever drama, whatever. And I was definitely one of those people, like, during the season where I was like, this is a non-story. I think this is stupid. It's going to get figured out. Even a couple people were like, but what if? And I'm like, we'll get there when we get there. And when people were mad, not people, Packers fans were mad that, like, Aaron Rodgers wasn't on the MVP edition of Madden, even though he got MVP. I'm like, valid complaint. Unfortunately, for a business and with how capitalism works, you need to have a successful, guaranteed plan to sell your product, right? Unfortunately, putting Aaron Rodgers on that cover in the midst of what was going on doesn't sell, because what if he changes teams? Right? You can't take that risk as a business, so you go with the previous two MVPs, Mahomes and Brady. And Brady was Super Bowl MVP, so, that's just how things roll like that. Amidst all that, though, I definitely, as I said before, I had the idea of, I'll address it when it happens, because honestly, I don't think it's going to happen. Now, the only thing I think that's ridiculous is I'm not sure why Randall Cobb is there. I'm not sure why they're asking for Clay Matthews to come back. Clay Matthews didn't play at all last year. Not that he had a bad year in his last year. He had 8.5 sacks in his last year. It's not like the guy couldn't have contributed, but he didn't play last year. So I'm like, I'm not sure if I want a pass rusher who hasn't played in a year and is older. And I don't know why he still wants Randall Cobb. It's like the guy wants the gang back together, but the gang was like not winning Super Bowls after 2010. So what's the point? I mean, you could try and blame McCarthy, which is a valid blame, I would argue, but also, I don't know, man. There's a reason why you're looking towards the future with like Devontae Adams, and why you really want someone like Marquise Scantling to develop and such. But not my business, not my deal. The point is that Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, and as long as he's the quarterback, I'm not picking against Green Bay until I see like an elite defense in that organization. And that elite defense that Minnesota did have, I wouldn't call elite anymore. So, yeah, Green Bay, without a doubt. You got anything else for me, bud?
For that, I think we agree pretty solidly. I don't really think there's much competition outside the Packers in terms of winning the division.
You know what? I would throw Minnesota's like competition, right? Because I think those will be the two teams it's between. But I give like Green Bay a significant, lead ahead of Minnesota, if that makes sense.
Right.
I definitely feel like Dalvin Cook will have another big season, though. I definitely feel like I don't think this is the year where like the wheels fall off the tires yet. All right, so NFC South. Are we picking anybody but the Bucs? Like, for real here? Are we picking the Sam Darnold-led Carolina Panthers? No. Are we picking the Matt Ryan-led Falcons with a new head coach and a defense that's still horrendous? No. Are we going to be picking the Jameis Winston Saints? I mean, you could. I'd be down for it. I mean, he looked decent in the preseason. I actually think the Saints might do better than we think, only because I thought their only issues they needed a quarterback to come back. And I like this idea in theory that Jameis Winston is better just because he had LASIK eye surgery. But the big thing about LASIK eye surgery for him is when he said the amount of things that he couldn't see on the field, like when he said like defenders and his own players were like blurred together. I'm like, shit, why weren't you wearing contacts the whole time? Like, this doesn't make any sense. No wonder you threw so many interceptions. And I know, you know what it's like being blind. I know what it's like being blind. You take off your glasses, you don't see shit, right? Imagine trying to throw a football 30 yards down the field. Anyway, not the point. I think it'd be kind of cool if like he did get some precision. Part of that would be on Sean Payton. The other part of it would be, well, maybe he can finally just see the fucking field and he's better for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I hate to say this because I always want Saints fans to suffer. Sorry if my uncle is listening. I know you're a Saints fan. I love my uncle. He's such a sweetheart guy. But I like watching Saints fans suffer because they're always so insufferable about things. Despite the fact I want to see Saints fans suffer, I kind of want to see Jameis Winston light it up more. I would love to see him succeed with the Saints. So it's a possible. So what?
I do like Winston.
Yeah, so that would be cool, right? And I think it would prove Sean Payton's legacy as well outside of Drew Brees. I think that'd be really cool. But it's the Buccaneers, man. They're returning all of their starters. It's not like Bruce Arians is a pushover. The fucking GOAT of all quarterbacks is still playing and showing no signs of slowing down. I mean, where's the drawback on this team outside of possibly the running game? And even then, they won a Super Bowl without their running game being incredible. So if someone says, what about their running game? I tell you, who gives a shit? They have a trophy right now. You know, you got anything on the Bucs or maybe a differing opinion?
That's my pick for the division as well. I mean, I really like the Saints. I actually really like Winston. I think they're going to do a lot better than people give them credit for. Drew Brees wasn't leading that team. Drew Brees wasn't a good quarterback for that team. But
wait, hold on. Before we get flamed, can you reiterate what you mean?
I'm talking just like this last year. Okay, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Let me make that clear. I'm not talking all time. He's one of the greatest, if not the greatest quarterback of all time.
Okay, the way you phrased it, I hope you know people could just take that sound bite.
You're right, and they would. So good catch. I'm just talking this last year. So, I could have been getting some serious.
Dude, you should join ESPN. People love those sound bites.
Oh yeah. So, definitely just in the last year, he wasn't going to lead them to a Super Bowl last year. Like, I get it; it was his last hurrah, but he was obviously not that guy. And Taysom Hill is not that guy. I'm glad they're giving Jameis Winston this starting job. I mean,
not officially announced yet, right? It just, clearly by preseason action, that's what it looks like.
Right. And I believe, meme it all you want. I think the LASIK surgery does make a difference, but I think, Jameis Winston, he's not, Sean Payton and Jameis Winston aren't, Tom Brady and Bruce Arians and the rest of that team that literally just won a Super Bowl last year with that exact same roster. So I'm not betting against the Buccaneers. They'll be back. They'll be fine. Tom Brady's going to look timeless as ever and whatever.
I'm going to make a caveat. Barring Tom Brady finally meeting his match against Father Time, which at this point I'm never betting, it's the Bucs to lose. That's how I feel.
Agreed.
All right, let's go to the NFC South, where we're going to disagree for the first time, which is cool. So why don't you go first, because I just went first.
You said the NFC South? I mean the NFC
I meant the East. Oh, my God.
Yeah,
I said
I was
South.
about to say,
Yeah. I meant the East. My bad.
I was about to say, I'm like, wait, what?
Know what I mean, not what I say.
So, honestly, it makes me want to throw up. But it's not like it's going to be a pretty division win. But it's going to probably end up being the Cowboys, barring, however you want to say it, any major injury to, let's say, a Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott, and maybe, Ezekiel Elliott comes back on this year and he's great and back to what he was because everybody says, oh, he's leaner, he's this, he's that. I want to see it first because he's getting around that age. He's reminding me of a David Johnson with the way he's run the last year or so. I've seen a deteriorating running back of that size before, and I see it again when I watch Ezekiel Elliott over the last couple seasons. That's just my opinion. So that's part of the reason why I'm not big on this roster is because I do think they need an elite running back to complement Dak Prescott to really achieve a higher potential. Their defense is not impressive by any means. I really, really don't like Mike McCarthy, but there's not a whole lot to like about many of the other teams in that division either. don't get me wrong, I do really like the Washington football team. I almost slipped. And it's been this long and I still almost slipped. Anyway, the Washington football team. And so I like their roster. I like where they're going. I just don't think they're ready to take that big next step yet to be a division winner. As long as the Cowboys are healthy, and I'm not going to bet on a Dak Prescott season ending again. So I'll take the Cowboys, unfortunately.
So let me get really loud and tell you why they're taking that next step, because I am all in on this Washington team. But I'm so excited to talk about Washington. Okay, so first of all, let me have my hype, and then you can kill me if you want to. Listen, man, Chase Young, I love this guy. Watching him in the preseason, he looks faster. He looks like he knows the game better. Watching him sack Cam Newton, I'm like, I can't wait to see him do that in a real game. Every single time he's on the field, he's going to be Defensive Player of the Year. It's not even a hot take. I think he's going to be preseason pick. He's the Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to be. I'm so certain of it. And when you got a guy who can lead a team like that, lead a defense like that with a young secondary who's not that bad.
I do like that secondary.
With Montez Sweat as well on the other side.
And I believe his name. It's last name's Allen. I believe his name's Dwayne Allen.
Yes.
He's their nose tackle.
Yes.
One of the best nose tackles in the league when you put on the tape.
Yes, this line is going to kill
Monstrous.
people. They're going to murder people, right?
They murdered people last year.
So what's funny is usually with defensive lines, you have a 3-4, 4-3 set, right? They're playing with 5-1 sets, where they just put their 5 best players on the defensive line and swallow you whole. I like that idea. It's a gamble. It's a huge gamble. You need the corners for it. But
you have the D-line for it.
I love the swagger that they got with their defense going in. And the last time... Hold on. And the last time a Ron Rivera defense had this kind of swagger, they were a 15-1 team. Now, hold on a second. Let's reflect on that. That 15-1 team also had an MVP quarterback, which they don't have. So I will slow down and say they're not going 15-1. But I do like the weapons that Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to have with Terry McLaurin, with Antoine Gibson, and the line isn't bad either. I think this is a solid roster that Ron Rivera is going to coach up very well. The defense is going to be top 5 by the end of the year. And as long as Fitzpatrick plays like he did when he was with the Buccaneers and Dolphins, I really don't see a situation where they don't at least win 9 to 10 games. And I think they're going to take the division doing that. That's just me, though.
See,
remember, it's a 17-game season, so 10-7 is, I think, pretty realistic for a team that...
Don't get me wrong. I really like the Redskins. And your comment about the 5-1 set. The thing I love about that is the game of football is completely won in the trenches. Yes, it's a gamble, but if you have the personnel to consistently do that and not get burnt, you're going to be a really hard defense to move the football against. So it's very unique what they can do with their personnel, and it's something that not many NFL teams are going to be able to run against in the first place. And if you can't run the football, well, good luck winning games. I know it's a passing league, but the best offenses in the NFL have a running game that can complement their passing.
Can I throw an interesting stat at you?
So, what's up?
Over the last decade, last 10 years, since 2010, you want to know what the winning record is for games where quarterbacks throw more than 40 passes?
How many?
30.6%.
Yeah.
It is a low win rate. 30.6%. If the quarterback is throwing 40 or more passes, you are not likely to win the game. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Remember when Joe Burrow threw 60 passes in a game?
Wasn't it 67 or something ridiculous like
that?
Oh,
I thought it was just 60. I don't remember.
Was it just 60? Okay, I know it was something ridiculous that
60,
game.
But yeah, it was just absolutely insane. Poor Joe Burrow. But with that being said, that's an interesting stat. I like that. But it kind of, it helps my point. It's going to be a really hard team to play against. I just don't know how I feel about the quarterback. I like Ron Rivera, but I don't know. I'm not in love with him. I don't think he's not going to light the world on fire in terms of the coaching. So I don't know. I don't really like many of the teams in that division. I think the Redskins have the highest ceiling. Excuse me. Jesus. Washington football team. Jeez. Anyway, I think they have the highest ceiling, but it's just Dak Prescott was up really on a tear last year, and if he can return to that form another year in this offense, and then, I know the injury and everything happened, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be fine. So, any thoughts?
No, I'm 100% with you on that. So, there's the NFC for us now. We'll get to wild cards in a second. Let's talk about the AFC division winners. Let's start with the AFC East, because I feel like this is the easiest one. Bills, right?
Yeah, there's not much else to say about it. I mean, the Dolphins are a really good team. I like them. Patriots are going to be a lot better this year, no matter who's at quarterback. Mac Jones has surprisingly looked really, really good. We're not going to mention the other team. So.
You know what? I'm going to stick to what I said back in May. I do not like who the Jets drafted for quarterback. I just don't believe it. I don't believe in him. I don't.
I like Zach Wilson, but I don't know if I like the match with Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh. But it could work. I do think he's very talented. But, just being a talented, good athlete doesn't really translate to being an above average to elite quarterback in the NFL.
Not necessarily.
Right. So I like Zach Wilson. I'm not going to say one way or the other, is he a bust or not? Because I got to see it more, because I haven't even seen him play. The only preseason games I've watched have been the Cardinals. I didn't even really watch the second one.
You know what I will say, besides like the fact I don't like him? I've told myself any quarterback who is starting week 1, probably outside of Andy Dalton, because I like Justin Fields more, but outside of Andy Dalton, I will give them a shot. Right? I will let them do their thing, give them 6 to 8 weeks, and if they're not good, they're not good, right? I can claim I am about quarterback positivity while also claiming, look, this guy's not getting it done. We need to move on, right? So I will give Zach Wilson the benefit of the doubt, even though I do have some doubt. As for our actual division winners here, I mean, I think we're picking Bills just because they were the winner last year. They went to AFC Championship last year. It doesn't feel like Josh Allen will regress in terms of, like, his overall progression. Sure, he may not throw up, like, the numbers he had last year, but statistical regression doesn't mean actual regression, right? It just means you didn't reach your ceiling, which is fine. Josh Allen doesn't have to reach his ceiling for the Bills to do well again this year. What I will consider, though, when picking the division winner, even though we've already stated we're picking the Bills, I really do like the Dolphins going into this year. This all bars on, like, obviously Tua Tagovailoa doing much better, but he's looked a bit sharper, and I can give him that. He's had a full offseason that wasn't, wrecked by COVID, so there's something there, right? And I would like to see what happens with it. And Tua, I think, is obviously the missing piece to a roster that is well coached, has a good defense, and maybe they might need some more offensive pieces. But for now, if you have an athletic quarterback who can do what he's supposed to do, then hey, you can make up for that lack of offensive talent later on. As for the Patriots, I want to talk about for a second how they spent so much money and how they had so many players who took last year off coming back. I think we're really underselling this. And I'm going to tell you right now, I wouldn't be surprised if New England actually won their division.
I wouldn't be shocked either.
I would not be shocked at all.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if you told me, hey, Patriots are winning the division in 2021, I'd be like, oh, all right. I believe you.
One thing you got to consider, too, and, like, I don't want to really get into this conversation, but it's something that could end up really affecting this team, is you have two guys just today, very defiant, been very vocal about them being, not for the COVID vaccine. And I'm of the opinion, just shut up. Don't talk about it. If you want to get it, get it. If not, not. But Cole Beasley and that, it's a distraction, bottom line. And it's going to affect the team. It could keep players, it could keep Josh Allen out of a game at some point. If that happens, I mean, Patriots could take advantage. Any team could jump them in that division. So, knock on wood, but it's going to affect some teams this year at some point. And, I mean, it's already affecting the Bills, so we'll see how it goes forward with them.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's already affecting Tannehill. Tannehill was just placed on the list today. So
right.
He's gone for the next 2 weeks, which means he will be there for week 1, but he won't be with the team to prepare for week 1. So, I mean, that's good for you, I guess. Ah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. There's hope yet, right? So, I think at the end of the day, we pick the Bills for the East, right?
Correct.
Cool. Let's go with the other easy one here. AFC West. If you're not picking the Chiefs, it's because you are trying to be edgy.
Fan.
No, you're trying to be edgy. You're trying to get clicks, and you're trying to be probably a Chargers, wannabe predictor. Like Justin Herbert's gonna be great. They have a loaded roster. Blah 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 blah. I'm gonna tell you right now. First year head coach, second year QB. And we've got film on him now, so we'll see what Herbert's really about. Is he a guy who can quote-unquote be quote-unquote figured out, or is he like this progressional talent like Mahomes where like you don't just figure him out, you just try to limit him, right? We don't know. We're going to figure out what Herbert is. And injuries have really held back the Chargers defense the last 2 years, and who knows if that happens again or not this year. So you're a wannabe edgelord if you're picking the Chargers. It's the Chiefs, and if you date anybody but the Chiefs, I really question your credibility as a professional analyst and amateur. I don't even care, dude. Like, you don't need to be edgy. Just say it what it is. Mahomes is the best. Andy Reid is great. Their offense is amazing. Their defense is always just enough. Like, I don't need to hear it. It's the Chiefs. Yeah. But again, this is my, I guess, not so humble take.
Well, and I agree because, I mean, it's the Chiefs, guys. Like, come on. They're the best team in the AFC. It's really hard to pick against them in any given week. I don't ever really bet against Patrick Mahomes. Granted, the Super Bowl is one thing, but we don't need to talk about that again. Now, with that being said, I do really like this Chargers team. And I think if all the pieces come together and this first-year head coach can get it figured out within the first couple of weeks, they could be a force to be reckoned with later in the season. So, especially with the expanded wild card, I think they could potentially get hot at the end of the year. But it wouldn't be enough to, usurp the Chiefs unless there was injuries or just something wasn't going right for the Chiefs.
I mean, but if you're going to talk about roster, you know what I could talk to you about? Darby, Chubb, Miller, Sutton, Hamler, Judy, Melvin Gordon. Like,
right.
Like I could come at you like that with the Broncos,
okay,
right?
But who's the quarterback?
Teddy Bridgewater.
Exactly, and my opinion on Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah,
look what he did with the Panthers last year. It wasn't that good. He had some of the best personnel in the league, downright. I know he didn't have CMC much last year, but he did have a Mike Davis who put up really good numbers for a backup running back. So with that being said, he had a supportive run game, and he had the weapons, so it's not like he didn't have the support. Maybe it's the coaching, but I'm not big on Teddy Bridgewater, and I feel like he just kind of side-graded to the same team. So I'm not really big on Teddy.
I'm not big on Teddy either, but what I will say is I feel like this is the roster where with Teddy it's either, hey, dude, you're either it or you're not. I think Teddy's gotten kind of screwed in the last 3 to 4 years.
Agreed.
In terms of where he's been with the Saints, he did a great job with the Saints, which is why he got the full-time starter position at the Panthers. But let's face it, the Panthers were never going to be a playoff roster, right? Especially with a rookie head coach and a young roster who needs some work. And this is coming from me, who I believe, if Sam Darnold develops the way he's supposed to, I think the Panthers could be a threat in a couple years. But that's a couple years. And Teddy Bridgewater, at this point in his career, needs to play with a team that's ready to go now, right? And that is more or less Denver roster-wise. I'm not a fan of Vic Fangio at the moment. I questioned some of his decision-making last year, and Vic Fangio also has made me reevaluate how I feel about him as a coach. Not defensively. I think Vic Fangio is a fantastic defensive coach. I question his ability as a head coach, though. And I think that'll hold Denver back in general, no matter who's playing quarterback. Whether it's Locke or Bridgewater or hell, you could name a better quarterback, right, than that could be on their team. Outside of like Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady playing for the Broncos, I would definitely question that team's ceiling because of Vic Fangio. So
Do you imagine if the Broncos got Aaron Rodgers? I don't care if it's Vic Fangio or not. Oh,
it'd be pretty damn good, but that didn't happen. So yeah, I think Teddy has like the higher floor than Locke, and that's what they went with. They went with bigger stability. I think the only reason they named Teddy Bridgewater their starting quarterback is probably because the coaching staff looked at the rest of their roster and was like, "Yo, this is a Super Bowl winning roster if we get some steady play at quarterback." That's probably what they said. So you're going to come at me with the Chargers got a loaded roster. I'm going to come with you with the Denver's got a loaded roster. But at the end of the day, I'm still picking Kansas City over both of them. And I do agree with you. Herbert is probably, maybe, I don't know. Raiders fans might get mad when I say this. Probably the second best quarterback in that division.
And I really like Derek Carr, too. Like, there's some good quarterbacks in this division. Some great quarterbacks in this division. So, like, Derek Carr could be, in maybe some other division, the best or second best quarterback in the division. But with Patrick Mahomes and what Justin Herbert could be, really, I think his ceiling is higher. So, I mean, I'm going to give him, the benefit of the doubt. So I'm going to give it to Justin Herbert there.
Yeah, and as for the reason I haven't mentioned the Raiders, they just don't have a loaded roster, and I question some of their offseason intakings. Like, they signed Kenyon Drake after they have Josh Jacobs, and then they traded away Rodney Hudson. I'm just very confused about, like, what's going on there. I know they got, what's his name? It's wide receiver. Not even a wide receiver, tight end. The one that you like, Hunter something.
Darren Waller? You talking about?
Is that his name?
Yeah, that's what you're thinking of. Or you're thinking of their wide receiver, Hunter Renfrow. That's my guy.
That's what I was thinking of. Okay.
Yes. Reports that he's absolutely ending Jalen Ramsey's career in practice.
Yeah.
We'll see if that's actually true or not. But I've always loved Hunter Renfrow.
So yeah, we'll see. I mean, the Raiders are enticing merely because of who their head coach is, but I'm kind of tired of seeing them going 7-9 and 8-8. And I will be sick and tired if they go 8-9 or 9-8. I'll just be like, it's the same old story every year with them. So that's why I'm not even like talking about them at the moment. Until the Raiders like show me more than what they are, I'm not going to believe that they're more than what they are.
They always seem to start pretty hot. Like, they seem to show they're like, hey, like, we can be a competitive football team, and
they are competitive, but competitive doesn't mean playoff worthy.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about the AFC West and the AFC East. You picked. Do you want to go north or south?
Let's go south.
South? Cool.
Yes.
Talk about. I'm assuming you're picking the Titans. I know you really like the Titans.
Yeah.
Talk about your Titans.
Yeah. Definitely. I love the Titans. So let's first let's mention Ryan Tannehill real quick. Why is everybody sleeping on this guy? I know, like everybody kind of wrote him off when he was in Miami, and Adam Gase was coach, and he looked like garbage, and he got hurt, and then ended up in Tennessee, and now nobody ever really paid attention to what he's actually doing. Oh, because, by the way, y'all, go look at the numbers. He's doing what Mahomes is doing.
Okay, hold on. I want to provide some context to that. He's doing what Mahomes is doing relatively. Now, I'm coming at this
in
from
terms of stats. Okay.
Can I?
In terms of talent, obviously Mahomes is a better quarterback, but when it comes to the stat line, they're identical.
I'm just watching out for your sound bites, bro.
Yeah.
I'm looking out for you.
You know what? Hey, maybe it pisses people off and it gets us attention. So, hey, that's how Twitter works, I guess.
I love attention, just not negative.
Right.
Continue.
But that being said, Tannehill is a great quarterback, very underrated quarterback, and he's a perfect fit in this offense. I love Vrabel as a coach. I think he's one of the best coaches in the National Football League. And now let's look at the skill position players on this team. You already had A.J. Brown, who I think is one of the top wide receivers in the NFL already. I'd put him in my top 5. People laugh me off, which, hey, go ahead.
Blasphemy. Okay, anyway, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I'm memeing you.
Yeah, people want to laugh me off, but put on the tape. That dude is just
Dude, he's
different.
pretty damn good. And you know what I hate? Is 2 of his best highlights are against my team.
Against you. Do you want to know why I like him so much?
We have like one of the best tackling defenses in the league, and 2 of his highlights are him bulldozing my secondary, and it pains me every time.
So there's 2 players that A.J. Brown remind me of, and one of them is his current teammate, and that's Derrick Henry. He plays wide receiver like a running back. He gets that ball, and he's looking to hurt people.
Yeah, he wants to run into you. He's got a big frame, big body, he's muscular.
Yeah.
He has like a DK Metcalf body.
Right. He reminds me, and they used to be teammates. They're very similar receivers here, but A.J. Brown almost reminds me of a young Larry Fitzgerald because he can go up and get the football, and he is physical at the line of scrimmage, and he's able to get people up, and he's able to get yards after catch, which is something I'm going to bring up very soon in a different segment. Just a little flash at that. I'm just going to throw that out there a little bit because I'm gonna drop some knowledge to some of y'all, and maybe some people won't think I'm so crazy about this top 5 thing with A.J. Brown. Anyway, so with that being said, yeah, hands down, I'm taking the Titans. And now my only concern with them is that defense. There's just not a lot. Blank period. There's just not a lot. That defense can gel together well and come out and play well on some days, but it's not going to be a consistent, front top of the league defense. It's going to be a middle of the pack to probably bottom 2/3 defense. It's nothing special, but when you have guys like Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, and a pretty decent offensive line in front of you, that's pretty hard to bet against. So we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, I'm going Titans.
Cool. And you know what? I think the Titans are a great pick, and while they are a great pick, I am actually going with the Colts here. Here's why. Their roster is still the playoff roster from last year. They didn't really lose anybody. And this all is I admit, a gamble on the fact that Carson Wentz does well. And the fact that him and Quentin Nelson are already back from their foot surgeries and practicing, I don't know if it's confirmed they'll start week 1 or not. I don't think it really matters if they miss week 1. Like, whatever. You have 16 other games to play. But I'm taking the gamble that Carson Wentz actually plays well under Reich. There's something to be said that certain coaches know what makes a quarterback tick. And I don't think in Philadelphia they knew what made Carson Wentz tick outside of Frank Reich, because Wentz never looked the same after Reich left. I know some people could argue he never looked the same after the injury. Disagree. He never looked the same after Reich left, which is around the time Reich left was around the time of the injury. The other thing, too, is what Carson Wentz's faults have always been his fault. Put on some tape even when Frank Reich was there and even in North Dakota. He's always been a guy who wants to make risks, take risks, even like when he shouldn't. I remember last year talking about a play where he was playing against Dallas, and if he would have thrown the football half a second earlier, an interception he threw in the end zone would have been a touchdown. He just had to throw it A, half a second earlier, or B, there was a guy who was wide open in front of him, 12 yards. Like, the guy had free landscape if he would have just thrown it to the guy 8 yards in front of him. 12 yards in front of him. And this was on a 3rd and 8. Like, they just needed a first down, but Carson Wentz went for the home run instead. Like, he's always been that type of gunslinger mentality guy, and I think Frank Reich knows how to control it. I have no other explanation other than, like, coaches matter and knowing what makes a player tick. And as I enter, my 3rd year of coaching as well, I've finally gotten a really good grasp of knowing how to make my players tick and understanding what they're good at, what they're bad at. And I'm not even calling myself like that fantastic of a coach, but I have learned from a coaching perspective that you need to take what your players do well. And this sounds obvious. You need to take what your players do well and say, okay, this is what we do to make you do well, and this is how we limit those things you're bad at. Right? And you also have to remind the player, do not do these things because you are bad at it. You don't tell them they're bad at it. You just say, don't do that. That's where we make mistakes. You have to word it well. And I truly believe Frank Reich has that ability with Wentz. Let me stop talking about Wentz. Let me talk about the roster. There's a lot to like about the running game. There's a decent amount to like about the receiving core. The offensive line is stellar for the Colts. And their defense is led by Darius Leonard. I don't think there's a ton to dislike about this roster. I like them. I really like Tennessee as well. But I think what really knocked Tennessee down for me a bit slightly was the defense like you were talking about. So I think the Colts just have like an even place at coaching. They're a bit better. The Titans are a bit better at quarterback, but I think the roster overall is better for Indianapolis, and that's why I'm giving them the division.
So, and
don't hate me.
No, because you're right. I agree. They have a better roster. I love Frank Reich, and I like the idea of repairing him with Carson Wentz, but
it is a gamble, I admit.
It's a huge gamble, and that's my thing is I'm not willing to trust it, and I know we need to be making these predictions based off of what the roster is going to be with all their superstars and all their key players fully healthy, but it's really hard to believe for Carson Wentz, and even if he is, I'm not sure if I'm really ready to buy how much he really takes that team to a higher level than Phillip Rivers did. Is that fair to say?
I mean, I think it's totally fair to say, but let's just say he played the same as Phillip Rivers. They were 11-5.
No, and you're right. And that defense is super talented. And one thing that you didn't mention was at least I don't think you did, is their running back Jonathan Taylor, who I believe had like 1,240 something yards.
I mentioned the running game, but yeah, Jonathan Taylor just like as a whole.
Jonathan Taylor is really good, and Nyheim Hines is a great third down back, a guy you can run from shotgun formations and like inside zones from the shotgun formation because that's a really good fit for him because he's got great vision. He's a really good receiving back. He can play wide receiver if you want him to. They got weapons. I want to see some of the receivers develop more, but I'm not sure I'm ready to trust Wentz to stay healthy. And even if he is, I'm not sure how much better he makes his team than Phillip Rivers. And I'm not sure if that's enough to win the division when it comes to, taking on the Titans. Because I can see the Titans 2-0ing the Colts, and that's no disrespect to their defense. It's just there's not going to be many defense that stop that offense. That's just I believe when you have an offense that can potentially be scoring easily 30 to 33 points a game, which I expect the Titans to be right around this year, honestly, when you really look at their offense, you're going to be winning a lot
games. No,
so
we're talking about health, right? I'm just providing a counterpoint.
Right.
I'm not going against you. We're talking about health, right?
Right, and with health, and it goes for the Colts too. So as long as they're healthy, yeah, the Colts can be a really good football team. But I just don't buy how much Carson Wentz really improves the team.
And I don't think this is a hot take. I don't buy Julio Jones playing more than 10 games.
And
it hasn't happened in a few seasons.
That's fair. That's a fair thing to say, but like we've both said in this segment now, like it's all based off of health.
Yeah, it's based off of health, right? Like that receiving core, monstrous, right? But I'd love to see Julio Jones make it past week 12, right? And if they do, man, that's going to be an awesome offense to watch. Oh, yeah. The defense is still a consideration to me for the Titans, but the offense, yeah, definitely a thing where if you want to start passing early on, just because you have the ability to, you do, and the Titans are kind of this weird team to where, like, let's just say they're a touchdown behind at the end of the third quarter. They don't care. They'll run with King Henry. It doesn't matter, right? You just plug and chug them away. So, no, I think both those teams are good discussions. Quick mention about the other two. Jaguars, second worst team to the worst team last year. Rookie head coach, rookie quarterback. Let's give him some time. Texans.
There's going to be growing pains no matter what.
Texans are currently the organization in the NFL that I don't think anybody wants to talk about, and I don't think anybody wants to be a part of. So, yeah, let's move on from that. AFC North.
Thanks for all your players, though.
Yeah, seriously, though. AFC North. So, man, I cannot tell you how often I've gone back and forth on this. One thing I will tell you about the AFC North. It's not going to be won by the Bengals, and some people might get mad at me for this one. It's not going to be won by Pittsburgh. definitely don't think that's happening.
W.
I've been pretty anti-Pittsburgh for the last 5 months now, which
Yeah,
is weird. Which is weird to say because I love Mike Tomlin, and I definitely still think that Pittsburgh is winning at least 9 games. I don't. Think
it's nothing against Pittsburgh.
it has everything to do with Ben Roethlisberger, at least to me. And you know what? Rich Eisen had a segment where he talked about how great Ben Roethlisberger looked. I'm like, yeah, and I remember how great Drew Brees looked for the first 3 weeks last year. Older quarterbacks.
I was shocked that Big Ben came back.
Older quarterbacks always look really good in the first few weeks. What matters is how are you playing week 15 and week 16. That's what matters because that's when playoff time is, right? It doesn't matter how good they look early in the season. It matters, are you still playing well? Is your body still... I don't know. We'll see. I will say Big Ben looks better. He's lost a ton of weight. He probably literally hit up Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady was like, yo, how do you get healthy? I need to do this. Right? And if it treats his body well and he still plays well, hey, I'm wrong. But as of right now, I don't believe it. I need to see it. Let's talk about something I do believe, though. I believe in Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson being the future of this division. I believe in Baker and Lamar Jackson being the guys who will battle for this division for years to come. And we have seen some awesome primetime games from these two quarterbacks playing against each other. Their rookie season, Week 17, amazing game. Now, of course, I'm a Ravens fan and we won it, so of course I'm saying it's amazing. It was an amazing game regardless. I thought we were going to lose it when Baker Mayfield was leading them down with a minute left, and then he threw an interception to end the game. And then there was last year's Monday Night Football game where I think the score ended 42-40 or something like that. Phenomenal rivalry going on between Cleveland and Baltimore right now. I love it. So much fun to watch.
It's going to be for a while, too.
It will be, and it should be. What my difficulty is I consider Cleveland's roster to be better than Baltimore's overall. However, I feel like Baltimore has a higher ceiling and more athletic ability overall than Cleveland's does, if that makes sense. So it's like Cleveland has like a higher floor, right? But I feel like Baltimore's has a higher ceiling. And in the matchups where Cleveland has kicked it into gear and Baltimore is too, Baltimore has still won those head-to-head matchups. They curb stomped them in week 2 or week 1. I remember you clowned me for saying the Browns were going to be real, and then we curb stomped in week 1, and you were like, "Oh, the Browns!" And I'm like, "Nah, dude, it's just week 1. Chill out." I do remember that though. I remember you sending me that text. And I'm like, "It's week 1, bro. Come down. They'll be okay." And then, yeah, sure, they didn't win that Monday Night Football game, but how playoff ready did the Browns look?
Oh yeah,
that night.
Oh yeah,
right. Yes, they lost the game, but how playoff ready did they look? They
smoked. What, a team that was 11-0 at one point?
Yeah,
right?
and then they went and smoked Pittsburgh, right? And then they were competitive against Kansas City.
I thought they were going to win that game for a very long time. I think there was a couple calls that really changed favors. There was a couple situations that ended up being big point swings in the game. So I thought they played close and they had a chance, but oh, man, I wanted them to win that game so bad.
Call me weird for saying this. I think the Browns have a better shot at the Super Bowl than Baltimore. I mean, both of them have a very close shot at a Super Bowl this year. I think the Browns have a better shot, but because of the head-to-head and how divisions work, I think I'm picking Baltimore to win this simply because Cleveland still hasn't shown that they can, consistently, beat Baltimore head-to-head, and that's what's important for division winning, right? Mm-hmm. So I think I'll pick Baltimore simply for that, but know that I say I'm picking Baltimore with the idea in mind that I think the Browns have a better shot at winning the Super Bowl than the Ravens do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm hyped about both these teams, though. I think the Browns roster's loaded. I'll tell you, dude, I'm excited for that Sunday night matchup we have against them, but I can't tell you that I'll be happy with the results at the end of it.
Right.
They certainly could beat us. I think it's exciting to talk about the Browns and how they're a good team. And if I ever see Baker Mayfield slandered on the timeline, I'm going to have to slap a bitch. Baker Mayfield's awesome. And if you would have caught me saying this 2 years ago, it'd be kind of weird.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of on that train 2 years ago.
I've
always been a like Baker.
You've always been what?
I've always liked Baker, and I've always defended him. I remember you used to clown him, and I told you, I was like, I've met the guy. I was like, he's actually a pretty cool guy. He's a nice guy.
Okay, but he really was such an asshat in his first 2 years.
He was as a football personality. Yeah, he was. But as a person,
I think the big
bad.
thing for me was still, I remember in week 16 him stretching in the tunnel hall and he was talking shit to a fan. Like, you just can't do that, dude. Like, you don't tell a fan, come down here and see what happens. Like,
yeah.
come on, man.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like, I think Kevin Stefanski was a great hire for him. He's really matured. But like I said, that same season when he said that, literally 4 weeks later in the Super Bowl, he told Rex Ryan, I'm going to stop responding to people like you, and I'm going to put my foot in my mouth. And he did that. And it's been phenomenal ever since. Baker Mayfield still has Baker Mayfield quotes. He had one against a reporter last year where a reporter asked him a really stupid question, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, totally. I'm gonna keep throwing interceptions. That's totally what I'm going for." And like he just like a totally Baker Mayfield thing, and then he like gave a "Why the fuck would you ask me that?" face, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's still a Baker Mayfield quote," and I can appreciate that because if you're asking stupid questions.
Expect a smart-ass remark.
Yeah, expect a stupid answer, right? So I'm not against Baker Mayfield being himself. He just needs to do it in a way that's not so controversial, I guess. But either way, I'm definitely for Team Baker Mayfield. I'm definitely for the Browns doing well, outside of when they play my team, obviously. And I'm definitely all for them being an AFC Championship / Super Bowl contender. But at the end of the day, for both these teams, until Kansas City shows any signs of faltering, which the only time they falter is when they play against Tom Brady over the last 3 years, I'm not picking them to not win the AFC and represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, at least not right now. I've taken over this segment because I'm a Ravens fan. I'm sorry. What's your take on the AFC North as a whole?
I mean, bottom line, you've mostly hit it. Like the Browns, I'm picking the Browns to win the division.
That's super fair.
Right, and I just like the Browns. Like as a football fan, they're a smash mouth team, and like they run what kind of like Bruce Arians likes to run offensively, which is an offense it's a traditional offense that works really well in the modern NFL. It's kind of like the bash and bomb. They're gonna run you downhill with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and then Baker Mayfield's going to throw a bomb to, hopefully, knock on wood, OBJ, Jarvis Landry. He's got really good weapons on this team. David Njoku. I don't know if how involved Austin Hooper can be, but if he can bounce back, he's a good tight end in this league. Maybe he just isn't a match for this offense. But speaking of the offense, it's elite. It can be elite. Baker Mayfield is a really good quarterback. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league. And this defense is just, there's monsters all over it. And, maybe not a lot of big names in the secondary.
Myles Garrett.
Yeah. And that secondary can ball. I like that secondary. There's Denzel Ward. I really like Denzel Ward. With that being said, I think that team's really well built. I love Stefanski. And I think as long, health bearing, we can say it with every team, it's really hard to pick against them. I think they have a really high ceiling in the AFC. And I believe it's a team that's very capable of beating the Chiefs, especially with another year of Stefanski, another year of Baker. I think they could be a real force to potentially be, a Super Bowl favorite this year.
Hey, we can find out which one.
Right.
Why that isn't the Sunday night game, I don't know. Yeah. When that schedule came out and I saw it wasn't, and it was was it the Bears and the Rams? Is that what's Sunday night?
Really, really unfortunate.
Stupid. Why is it not the Chiefs and
I don't know. But anyway, but going to the Ravens, Pittsburgh Bengals, the Pittsburgh's going to be competitive just because they have great coaching and they have good players. But again, like you said, I'm not buying Big Ben to really take that team to a level that can compete with the elite of the AFC. And then the Bengals are Bengals, and that organization's not great. No matter how much I love Joe Burrow, I love some of the pieces that are on that team. I just don't think it's well coached, and I don't think it's a very cohesive unit, just that entire organization. So it's really hard to pick them.
So as a neutral analyst, I got to ask, because I think I kind of stated it with Cleveland being, I think, the one who could go further in the postseason, but the head-to-heads, Cleveland just hasn't had success against Baltimore yet. I need to hear another person's perspective, like their take on Baltimore, because it's not like their roster's bad, right? It's pretty damn good. They're gonna win the same way they've been winning the last few years, and no one's really quote unquote figured it out in the last 3 years. So, what? How exactly do you feel about them? For me personally, I don't know if this is like as a football fan or as like an actual fan of the team. I feel like what really kills it for me is they can't beat Kansas City. That's one. Mm-hmm. They can't do it. They've proven they can't do it yet. And until they do, I won't believe they will. Like, week 2 when we play them on Sunday Night Football, I'm picking Kansas City. I love my team.
Let me tell you what I think about the Ravens. So, the Ravens, I think, talent-wise, the way their roster is built, they have the third best roster in the AFC behind the Chiefs and the Browns. So, in that order. With that being said, that's the thing is I don't know if they can beat the Chiefs, and the Browns are going to be a very hard matchup for them as well. So you're going to have to face one of them in the playoffs, and you're going to have to face both of them during the season, one of those teams twice. Those are tough teams. And when you consider what would potentially go on in the playoffs, if I'm going to compare them to those other teams, I'm not going to pick the Ravens to beat the Chiefs. If the Browns and Ravens played today, I'd probably pick the Browns. And it's no knock on the Ravens, and it's no knock on Lamar Jackson. You know how much I love Lamar Jackson, but that's my point. Is this defense is elite. This offense puts up elite numbers in the rushing attack. You got to start looking at.
It'd be nice to see if their passing. It'd be nice to see if their passing game could finally do something.
Yeah, and it's not all Lamar Jackson's fault. His weapons last year are terrible, but at some point,
the amount of drops fucking kill me, dude. Every year.
And then what Ravens fans like to do is they're like, oh well, Lamar Jackson's a good quarterback because he threw this many touchdown passes 2 years ago. Well, okay, that's all well and good, but throwing a lot of red zone touchdown passes isn't that impressive, because that's what it was. You ran down the football field the entire way, and then you ran, an RPO or an option down in the red zone that teams just couldn't stop because either Lamar was going to hand it off, he was going to run it in himself, or he was going to throw a little slant that was just uncoverable because you were focused on the run the entire time. That's what it was. Sorry, Ravens fans. And sorry, Sanders. I hope at least that's how I see it.
I'm not taking any offense here.
Because you know how much I love Lamar Jackson, but let's look at the passing numbers. Look at the averages. Look at the completion percentages in certain parts of the field. He steps below the elite of the elite, and now I'm not saying Lamar Jackson isn't a great quarterback, because I do think he's a great quarterback, but I believe his passing limitations are there. They are a concern, and because he has them, it's going to be really difficult to compete with the Chiefs. It's going to be really difficult to compete with the Browns, and even it's going to be difficult to compete with the Titans. And it's nothing against Lamar Jackson, because they've proven they can win with the run game and the way Lamar Jackson plays. And I'm not saying they're incapable of beating all those teams I just listed. Any team, any day. But with that being said, I need to see more from Lamar Jackson as a pure passer. I don't want just stats. It's just the arm talent isn't quite there on everybody else, and that's always been Lamar Jackson's thing. He's a elite athlete. He's the best athlete at the quarterback position in the NFL. But he's not the best quarterback in the NFL.
I would say best thrower if we're talking that. One thing I will say about Lamar Jackson's game that I want to see improved. I think he. It's weird. There are games where, he has, great decision-making. If there's nothing down the field and he sees, green in front of him, he's like, oh, this is an easy 8 yards, right? Mm-hmm. I really appreciate that decision-making. But there are times when he sees a play downfield and he throws it, and it's like, oh, here comes the safety that you didn't think about. There's the interception. Or he throws a ball, right, which should be caught, right? He makes a good decision, and then someone like fucking Marquise Brown. I have a love-hate relationship with that man. drops it. Wide open in his hands, right?
It reminds me of Christian Kirk.
Oh, man.
He's your Christian Kirk.
You know, there is a piece of me that really wonders, man, what if my team had that number one that was reliable? How would that look? I always wonder.
You have it now.
What?
Even with the additions you made now, you still don't have it.
I don't think we do. I really don't. I would, if Bateman becomes it, cool. I need to see it. I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to happen. I need to see it. For me, I think the Ravens, the reason why I don't have them going further than the Chiefs, they're not beating Kansas City. At the moment, not happening. But even so, I think the biggest issue is I need to see what they look like week 12. Like, by then, is their passing game improved enough to where, like, if they have to throw for 280 yards or more, can they do it? Can they win that way? It's not like they haven't won throwing before. They have, but they've always won throwing when they're ahead. Mm-hmm. And they have won from behind, by the way. They did that against the Browns. They were literally behind in that game. They were behind against Tennessee. They've won from behind. I don't think that's the narrative anymore. I think the narrative is, can you win from behind when the team is forcing you to throw? Right? There's always goalposts that are moving for the team. And I think some of those goalposts are understandable. Like against the Bills, if not for the pick six, that game is probably tied going into overtime. Because that defense was killing the Bills that game. But Lamar Jackson threw a predictable slant that they always throw in the red zone, and it was a pick six. Game over. Can you do something different? I don't know if they can or can't.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, that's what I got on that division. Go Browns.
All right. Wild cards. Do we want to stick with the AFC?
Let's switch back to the NFC real quick.
All right, cool.
We'll make the wild cards quicker.
Okay, cool.
You want to start, or do you want me to start?
Let's have you start with the NFC. I'll start with the AFC.
All right, so I'm going to start with the lower end wild cards first, and I'm going to say, honestly, I'm going to say it. And you know how much I hate on the Bears. You know how much I hate their brand of football. But they're always kind of hanging around every single year, and they're always kind of there. And they've made the playoffs before. They made it last year. Come on, guys. Mitch Trubisky was the MVP. God, that game was awful. That was a terrible playoff game. But with that being said, they get there. I don't love Matt Nagy, but he gets there, so I can't knock him. So with all that being said, I do like the Bears as the seventh seed. Seventh seed? Yes. There's 7 playoff teams? Yes, there's 7 playoff teams. So I like them as the 7th seed. Another team I really like that people are going to sleep on is the Saints. Jameis Winston, I believe he's going to really thrive in this offense, and now that he can actually see. I think with Sean Payton, if Michael Thomas comes back and plays well, I know he's not happy with the organization, and I don't like Michael Thomas as a player or, as a guy, as a personality. I don't like Michael Thomas. But as a player, he's one of the elite of the elite if he's healthy. So if you can give Jameis Winston that with Alvin Kamara and a really good defense and a really well-coached team, I think they can do some damage. And then the final wild card spot, I'm going to say it. Because I've always kind of been 1 foot in, 1 foot out the last 2 seasons under the Cardinals, but I think with the roster they built, they truly, truly can be a really good football team this year. You added a guy like J.J. Watt. That was the thing with this team last year, was they were missing leadership, and they got plenty of it through their offensive additions. And then they signed, a real NFL kicker, Matt Prater. Let's keep in mind that Zane Gonzalez himself lost the Cardinals 3 games alone last year. That puts them at 11-5 and in the playoffs last year. If he makes one of those kicks, the Cardinals are in the playoffs last year. So that's how close the Cardinals were. So people want to knock them and they want to blame Cliff Kingsbury and say how bad he is, but the Cardinals are literally 3 kicks away from being an 11-win football team last year. So I like them. I think Cliff and Kyler are going to continue to improve and rise, and they have finally the personnel, I believe, on offense to finally really truly do what Cliff does well with an offense. I believe Rondell Moore is going to be really good for that team. I think James Conner is going to be a good, powerful back that this team has needed for a while. Adding Rodney Hudson is going to do wonders for this offensive line, and then adding guys like J.J. Watt, Malcolm Butler, A.J. Green, getting all this veteran leadership in here, and getting the toxic players, Patrick Peterson, out of this team. I think it's a big deal for the Cardinals, and I do believe they are going to be the wild card team in this playoffs. So,
question for you. Is there any team in year 3 who you don't think would make it and you'd replace them if you knew they weren't going to make it?
See, that was really easy for me with AFC because there's a bunch of different teams I could sub in for the bottom spot. But for the NFC, I know the NFC is loaded, but I think when you look at the top teams, it's really there. I think because the NFC is loaded, but it's all based off of hell. And I really, really like the 49ers roster. But Kyle Shanahan is 29-35 as a head coach, and I know a lot of it's injuries, but that's another thing. This team's never healthy. They have a history of not being healthy for the last decade plus. That team's always hurt. I don't know what they're doing down there. I don't know what's wrong with their turf. Lots of NFL players have complained about it. Let's not forget that was a storyline last year, that players were complaining about the turf in San Francisco because it was grabbing their cleats early on the season because it was still too hot and the sun was beating on it all day. So that's something you got to think about. And what's their training staff doing? Because these guys are getting hurt all the time, and it keeps continually happening year after year after year, and that's what's holding, I believe, Kyle Shanahan behind. But I also think the loss of Robert Saleh hurts them. But I could see them being subbed into the playoffs there. I could see the Seahawks still doing what the Seahawks do every year. It's a big deal. I mean, it's I don't know. The NFC is really tough, but I could sub any of the NFC West teams out of there. And then after that, I mean, there's not a whole lot of teams that I really, really love in the NFC. I just think it's a really well-rounded conference. It's not like anybody in the NFC East is really going to be a superpower. So I don't know.
So my 3 NFC teams I can name off fast: Saints, Cardinals, Seahawks. Those are my 3 wildcard teams. In order: Saints, Seahawks, Cardinals. And the only reason I put Cardinals lower than Seahawks, because it's weird, I think Cardinals' potential is much higher than Seahawks. I have an issue with them reaching it, if that makes sense. Their ceiling, I feel like their ceiling is almost as high as the Rams. I just have an issue with them reaching it. Really need to see it happen. I see the potential, but I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to reach it, right? And a lot of that has to do with Kyler Murray. Dude's a baller to watch. I love watching Kyler Murray. I'm so excited to go to Cardinals games this year. I cannot wait I can't wait after this year to say I got to see DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt, and Kyler Murray all on the same field. And A.J. Green.
I still haven't even seen D-Hop in a Cardinals
big fucking middle finger to everybody who doesn't get to say that from me. But and on one of those games, hopefully I get to see Matt Stafford and Aaron Donald. As a football fan, I'm so excited. But if I had to replace one of those teams, it's definitely Arizona at the moment, and it's probably Minnesota I replace them with. I don't trust the Bears. I don't trust the Lions. I don't trust the Falcons, Panthers, Giants, Eagles. I honestly don't trust the 49ers despite the fact that their roster is awesome. And so that leaves me with Minnesota or Dallas. I really like the idea of Dallas's offense. I think they're going to probably blow up some heads. Their defense has always been my issue for the last year and a half, though, and it's still my issue moving forward. So until that's figured out, or until I see, hey, the Cowboys, they have a solid unit on defense. That's pretty good. Until that happens, I don't really care how good your offense is. I really don't. Which leads me more to Minnesota because they're a little more defensive-minded. I think Kirk Cousins is fine. He's not going to blow anybody up, but he's a fine quarterback to have. They have a great receiving core in Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook. There's a lot to like about the Vikings offense, and there's a decent amount to like about their defense enough to say you can make it a 9-8 or 10-7. But that's if I was told, hey, the Cardinals are going to fail in this, I'd replace it with the Vikings. So I got the Vikings at what? 8 seed?
What?
Barely missing.
Yeah.
As for the AFC, I'm going to do this one quick too. So obviously Browns, since I picked Baltimore, right? And if I would have picked Browns, I would pick Baltimore. So that it's just kind of like, two AFC North teams. Kind of how I feel about the Dolphins and Bills, honestly. I feel like the Dolphins have to make it this year. They had a great season last year. I feel like there's no way they don't make it this year. And the other one, this is rough to say because like people could argue Chargers, people could argue Broncos, loaded rosters and such. You could argue Patriots. I'd take it. And if someone wanted to argue Steelers because, good coaching, I'd buy it. It's got to go to the Titans for me if I'm picking the Colts to win the roster, right? I don't see – it's going to be really weird. One of these three teams isn't going to make it. The Dolphins probably being the most likely of them all, or who knows, maybe the Titans' defense really is the bane of their existence. Okay, if I had to guarantee one team, Browns aren't missing. They're just not. Browns and Ravens, it doesn't matter. They're not missing. Dolphins, Titans. Yeah, that's got to be it. That's who I wrote before. That's who I still believe in. I don't believe in the Chargers just yet. I'd love to believe in Denver, but I just don't. And Pittsburgh's probably the only other one who could vie for this spot, maybe with New England. Those are I need to see it kind of deals. I'm not doubting that Pittsburgh or New England can't do it, but if you're forcing me to pick, right, gun to my head, it's Browns, Dolphins, Titans.
So I'll just go through mine real quick. For me, it's Dolphins, Patriots, Ravens.
Okay.
But picking the Dolphins was extremely, extremely, extremely hard. And the only reason I picked the Dolphins over the Chargers is because of a first-year head coach.
Yeah, you're really down on the Colts, aren't you?
I don't trust Carson Wentz to stay healthy. I find it. I know
Fair.
We can't really bet on health.
Fair.
But I love that roster, love that team, love that coach, but I think they're taking a giant gamble that I really can't bet on paying off. So I think Dolphins or Chargers, honestly, but I'm going to take the Dolphins just because the more experienced head coach and another year with that head coach, I think will do Tua some good. With that being said, you already know I'm not a big fan of Tua. It's not that I think he's bad, but he's not – I don't know. I don't really think he's anything special by any means. He's not going to light the world on fire, but I feel like he could be a pretty good game manager to – coming out and having above average performances every now and then, but I don't think he's going to be otherworldly by any means. But with that defense, you can do that. And now that offense doesn't have a whole lot of really great skill personnel. But they have some weapons, and as long as, the defense is holding up their end of the bargain, get 20, 24 points a game, and, you're going to be in games. So I like the Dolphins. The Patriots, it's really hard to bet against Bill Belichick, and I think Cam Newton, whether he's the starter or not, I think a second year in this offense will do him some good. Hopefully he doesn't get COVID, because the first couple games of the season, they weren't too bad. Cam Newton wasn't too bad. They were still one of the top rushing football teams in the league. So it's not – and like you said earlier, they're getting all their players that opted out last year back. So I think – they're going to end up being a force to be reckoned with because that defense is going to be really good. Bill Belichick knows how to coach up this offense. And Mac Jones, if he ends up being the starter, he was the quarterback I was the lowest on, but it looks like that dude could play. Now it's just preseason, so we'll see what it looks like when he's not facing vanilla defenses. He looks all right. So, and then other than that, I don't really say a lot about the Ravens. They're 1A if, they win the division or not. That's what it comes down to there.
So they're probably the what is it, number 5 seed probably at the end of the day. So cool. So let's get to our big takes going forward into the season, right? Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? I don't really care, man. I know you're hyped about yours.
I'll go ahead and do mine first. And So this is my hot take of the year, guys. Last year, remember, I did the Cardinals be a top 5, or excuse me, it was a top 3 rushing football team, and I think they finished 6th, and they were top 3 and number 1 for a very, very long time. Sanders gave me a lot of shit, but he ended up giving it to me in the end because nobody even expected him to finish 6th, let alone top 3.
You know what? You absolutely 99% called it. You're good, dude.
Yeah. So I basically got it. So with that being said, this year it's not about a team's performance. It's not about the Cardinals actually, but it's about one wide receiver named A.J. Brown. So first thing I want to just base this off of. Let's look at his 2019 stats real quick. 52 receptions as a rookie. 52 receptions, not bad. 1,051 yards. I mean, it's not otherworldly, but anytime you can get over 1,000 yards, especially as a rookie, that's pretty impressive. Now, the average is the thing that pops off the page here. Per catch, he averaged 20.2 yards his rookie year. He scored 8 touchdowns. Now, the reason his average was so high, this is something that I think is a really big deal. His average yards after catch his rookie year was 8.8 yards. So he's almost gaining a first down every single time after he catches the football. That led the NFL of all players of yards after catch, and to include running backs. He did that as a rookie wide receiver. Let's look at 2020. He increased from 52 to 70 receptions. He increased from 1,051 yards to 1,075 yards, and you say, okay, that's not a very big jump. Keep in mind, he did miss 2 games, and we'll get to that in a minute as well. His average per catch jumped from 20.2, which is just a mind-boggling number, down to 15.3, which is a decent little drop, but I mean, comparatively speaking, from 20 to 15.3, it's not that big of a deal. You're still getting 15 yards a pop. I mean, come on, that's pretty good. He did get 3 more touchdowns that last year. He had 11. And then yards after catch, he averaged 6.2. Now, that was 12th in the league and 9th among wide receivers last year. So, with that being said, one thing that I don't think people want to take into consideration here was those 2 games. So let's revisit a little thing here. So A.J. Brown had surgery on both of his knees, I believe. I believe it was both of his knees. I know I read that somewhere. Might need to be fact-checked, but I know he did have surgery on at least one knee. And when it was due to a bone bruise that was so bad that he was told, quote, they told me I was done for the year in week 2. I played all year. I made the Pro Bowl. End quote. He missed weeks 2 and 3 with a bone bruise in his knee. At the end of the season, he went and had surgery and got them cleaned up. You mean to tell me this guy played with 2 injured knees all year, still put up 70 catches with 1,075 yards, 11 touchdowns, and was extremely prolific after the catch again with 2 bum knees, and now you're going to pair Julio Jones across from him, so he's no longer the number 1 receiver on the team anymore, with Derrick Henry in the backfield, working off that play action with Ryan Tannehill. Oh, yeesh. And now, think about what kind of jump that wide receivers typically take year 3. Year 3 is the make it or break it year for a wide receiver to really, truly know what they're going to be, or if they're really going to take that truly elite jump. And I am wholeheartedly on the train that A.J. Brown is going to be absolutely insane. And my hot take is he's winning Offensive Player of the Year. Book it. I'm taking that to Vegas. Putting a little bit of money on it. Not a ton, but putting some money on it.
Are you actually?
I'm going to put some money on that.
Not only is he so confident in his pick, he's putting money on it. Damn.
Probably put like $75 on it or something like that. Probably be a pretty good,
Hey, man.
Yeah.
I'm all for you putting your money where your mouth is. So it's funny. So mine is actually for a player winning an award, too. I'll tell you right now. It's for Comeback Player of the Year.
Okay.
Could you take any guesses?
I mean, I'll be biased and say AJ Green.
So it's kind of funny how right you are.
No way.
Yeah, you were right. So I
was thinking that too.
I did talk about Twitter on Twitter a few days ago how I was going to be all about Arizona positivity, right? Here's my Arizona positivity, okay? This has to do with me viewing their ceiling. When they first signed AJ Green, I wasn't about it. I was like, man, they really just signed a washed-up receiver to replace another washed-up receiver. No offense to Larry Fitzgerald. He's on my bank card. No offense to him. But let's be real. Let's be real about last year. And maybe even the year prior, he was okay. He's not what he was. He is a, dare I say, washed-up player. Please don't hurt me, anybody. The fact that he's not coming back this year and he said he's not wanting to play football, I think really shows that I think he made the right decision. It's very sad to say. When he officially announces it, this entire state will cry that we live in. But that was my thought, was, damn, they really replaced another washed-up receiver with another old washed-up receiver. What is this? But as we've seen some, training camp tape, AJ Green looks spry. And it's not about him looking good in camp. It's about him, his body just looking good, right? For a guy who's been injured, hasn't played a full season since 2017, he looks good. He looks spry. He looks like he still has the ability to make people miss, and he doesn't have to play against number one corners because DeAndre Hopkins is across from him. He's not been on anybody's radar for a long time. And let's not forget, this guy was, top 10, top 5 for a while?
You could argue he was the number one receiver in the league for a while.
AJ Green was a monster.
At least a year or two. Yeah.
And it's not like this guy's old. He's not that old. Like, you think about the name AJ Green, and you think to yourself, oh, that name's...
Larry Fitzgerald, Larry Fitzgerald had one of his best years, if not his best year statistically, at age 33.
And you think to yourself, man, this guy's been around a long time. This is only, I think, his 9th or 10th season. He's only 33. Like, this guy is not that old. I mean, 33 is still, getting up there, but when you're across Hopkins and you still look decent, hey, and you're willing to accept the second fiddle role, which I don't see why you wouldn't want to, when you know your talent across, oh my God, I was about to say AJ Green, across Hopkins, I don't, and let's put the puzzle pieces together. Kyler Murray is his quarterback. He has a good quarterback next to him, throwing to him, who's going to run the ball, who's going to open up the field because he has a running ability threat. And it's not just, Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson can run. No. Kyler Murray, and I mean this in the best way possible, is budget Lamar Jackson when it comes to the running ability. Not the throwing ability, because I think Kyler Murray's throwing ability is better than Lamar's. But when it comes to, the running area of the game, this is very much second-tier Lamar Jackson, which is a heavy comment to his running game. And even when you look at, and I'm referring to this seriously, when you hear players on the top 100 talk about Kyler Murray, the first thing they talked about was not Kyler Murray's throwing ability, despite the fact he's very good. They talked about his running ability, his ability to make you miss. A lot of his highlights were how often and how quick his cuts are. You're not tackling Kyler Murray easily. So when you got a guy who can open up the field for you and you got a wide receiver who's opening up the field for you, I feel like AJ Green is feasting this year. Over 1,000 yards. Yes, I did say that. Over 1,000 yards. And at least 6 TDs. And comeback player of the year.
I'm down for that. Yeah. I'm down for that.
That's what I got. AJ Green. Y'all fantasy people. This is your wide receiver 3 right here. This is your flex guy every week. AJ Green.
I had him on my bench for a long time last year.
I'm just saying, AJ Green. Book it. Comeback player of the year. Over 1,000. You know what? You can even decrease it to 900, but he's still scoring some TDs. He's going to be a red zone target. That's my hot take of the year. We already know our comeback player of the year. It's AJ Green.
Chandler Jones might have something to say about that. But.
Nah, AJ Green. No, don't steal my thunder here. So yeah, awesome episode. We reached our hour and a half mark, which is exactly what we wanted. So that is awesome. We're so excited to be back. We're so excited to do this. stay tuned for next week's episode because we're going to be talking about a little bit of a surprise for our audiences, and it's kind of a sellout thing that we're doing, to be honest. But we're
Hell
really...
yeah, brother!
What?
Get them views. I say, hell yeah, brother, get them views up.
So we'll talk about that next week, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much to those who watched. And guess what? We're back. We'll see you next week.